And
you appear to be frozen. I see that. You appear to be frozen.
Really? Great.
Hold on. It might be me. I'm going to switch back over to my... I think I'm on the Wi-Fi, so let me switch over. Again, always something. Always something.
We good.
Hidden network. No, I want to disconnect. All right, now you're fine. It was my Wi-Fi because the Wi-Fi down here is not great. Because I unplugged the hardwire to test the thing. So I think we good now. All right.
All right. Yeah, we're good. We're live. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, let me just pull up the page. Give me a moment.
Mike Kinney. We know Mike Kinney. We know we are live.
All right. Give me 3 seconds. I'm a little flustered, but I'll do my best. Welcome back to the Dynasty Happy Hour, episode number 356. I want you to do me one favor on this before we get to this holiday. I guess it is this holiday weekend, technically. I hate it when holidays are on like a Tuesday. It's always weird. It's even worse when they're on a Thursday. Like, which weekend do we celebrate? Is it the weekend after? Is it the weekend before? Just celebrate both is the answer. But what I want you to do, take a week off. I want you to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can search Dynasty Happy Hour. Hopefully you're watching it there now. And if you are, hopefully you've already liked and you subscribed. That would be helpful. You can get us in video format on YouTube as well as on Facebook. We are broadcasting there as well. So check that out. And you can jump in our comment section if you got some questions while we're here. We've got Mike in the chat. We've got Jamie in the chat saying hi and yo. We are live. Absolutely. It is just James and I this week. Tyler is coming back from the lake. He's probably as red as a tomato. He's got to put kids down, do all that stuff. He's like, you know what? I'm out tonight. And I was like, that's cool. James and I, a 2-man box. It's all good. I was gone last week. I was away from my, I almost said honeymoon. I got married 19 years ago for my anniversary up in the White Mountains of North Conway, having a grand old time. So I missed last week's episode, but I am back next week. All three of us should be back in the building. So the Triforce will be back together. If you're a Zelda fan,
tentative. I have my Scott Fish Bowl draft next week. So we'll see how wasted I get.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
By the time 8-9 o'clock rolls around, you'll be great. So this week we are going to continue with our Dynasty divisional breakdowns, the DDBs, if you will, and we are going over the NFC South, which stinks because Tyler misses out on his favorite team, the Atlanta Falcons, as he would say. But we're going to cover it for you here. We're going to jump into some news. But before we do that, James, how the hell was your holiday weekend?
It's going great so far. At the beach yesterday, just had dinner with the fam, gearing up, like I said, for Scott Fish Bowl. I got another exciting SFB 13 t-shirt on
Very
today.
Nice.
One of my favorite brands of soda. Tyler calls it Pop, Coca-Cola. Even though I'm not in this division, which I would love to have been in this division, I'm going to be representing the Pats, King of Steaks, at the live Philly draft next week. Go check out everything SFB. SFB 14 just opened up.
I know. You'll be at the draft next weekend. I'll be at the Boston draft at the Lansdowne Pub representing the Cheers division on the 15th of July. So we've got back-to-back weekends of some SFB fun to talk about when you guys join up on the podcast. And I think Tyler is doing the live one in Minnesota as well. And I don't remember when that one is, but it's either in one of these next 2 weeks. So I'm super excited for that. I'm drafting out of the 4 spot, which will be a lot of fun. Guaranteed a big quarterback or Travis Kelce. Let's roll. So I'm happy to be in that spot of the draft, which is really nice. So thank you for Jamie and Mike being active in the chat. We answered your questions. Boom. I'm going to keep an eye on that and be a good host this week. Usually I don't. I usually have the private chat up the whole time because I'm terrible. But let's get into some news here in a moment. But first, I want to talk about Underdog, the absolute best way to do anything best ball or even daily fantasy related at this point. You know, I know there's some other bigger competitors out there, but Underdog is just a different animal because it's a dog. And they're just different animals. They're the best animals, to be honest. James knows. We don't own any of those cats like Tyler does.
No.
Cat owner. Tyler's a cat owner. Does that surprise anyone?
I like the pay line. I don't like the feline.
Very, very nice. I like the canine. You know what I'm saying? All
Oh,
right. So daily best ball drafts have already begun. Best Ball Mania is back. Best Ball Mania 4 is the biggest underdog contest ever. $3 million to first place. They've got the Chihuahua Superflex tournament. $4 to enter, $250,000 in prizes. You know, NBA's wrapped up. Hockey's wrapped up. That's okay. They're still playing baseball. They've got that going on. We've got fantasy golf as well as the NFL big board. It's the best way to play daily fantasy. And when you go and download that right now in the App Store or the Google Play Store, you can use code DHH and they're going to match up to $100 of your deposit. So you put in 50, that's what you got. They'll match, put in 50. So you'll have $100 to play with and hopefully double that really, really fast. Just some really, really fun games on the Underdog app. So make sure you check that out today. Code DHH. Let's get into some player news. Unfortunately, we're going to kick off player news with a bit of sadness. So former Patriots and Ravens quarterback Ryan Mallett has passed away at age 35. I remember when the Pats drafted Ryan Mallett. I remember where it was Mike Mayock said he had like big arm talent, and he did. He was a big kid, big arm. Unfortunately, he passed in Florida in a swimming accident while he was on vacation. It looks like it was a riptide. So just a word for the wise, if you haven't done any research on riptides, if you're caught in a riptide, don't fight it. Let it take you and then swim to the side and you'll be good to go. It's been a common problem in that particular beach. So it's unfortunate to see him pass away, especially at such a young age. I think he was 36 years old. Thoughts with the Mallett family and everyone that was affected by that. You never like to see that. I actually liked Ryan Mallett quite a bit when he was a Patriot. And it didn't work out here. And you know what? He had a 7-year career, which isn't too shabby. Speaking of the Patriots, they did sign wide receiver Devontae Parker to a 3-year extension worth up to $33 million. This is the contract that no one saw coming. It's mostly incentive driven, very heavily incentive driven. $14 million or so guaranteed. It does create some cap space for the Patriots. We've been hearing, DeAndre Hopkins was in for a visit now. I think it was almost 2 weeks ago. There's been some Dalvin Cook rumblings, which I would love because they need help at the running back position, which we'll talk about here in a second. But James, any reaction to Devontae Parker? Hoping this opens up Hopkins there. Like, I think this is a really good buy low offense outside of Ramondre Stevenson because his price is pretty juicy right now.
I mean, really, I'm staying away from any of the wide receivers after what we saw last year, and rightfully so. Mac Jones had a down year. We know that Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a playmaker in this offense, but outside of that, who else? Possibly Mike Gesicki. But other than that, I'm really trying to stay away from these guys.
Yeah, I would be buying low on Mac Jones. I think he does have a big rebound year this year. I actually thought Devontae Parker played really well. If you look at the PFF metrics, he actually ranked really well. Didn't have many drops. His yards after the catch, yards per catch were solid. I actually thought he looked really good. To sign him long term, it's probably going to be one of those things where it's an extension, but they can get rid of him in a year if they need to. He's on the wrong side of 30 at this point. He's had one really good fantasy season just a few years ago and helped people win leagues. But yeah, I mean, I like Gesicki as a cheap tight end. I think he is a bargain right now in Dynasty. So there's a lot of, even Hunter Henry too, there's a lot of value to be had in this Patriots offense where Ramondre, I think, is appropriately priced. I think everyone else can be had rather cheaply, and that wouldn't be a bad strategy for you going forward. Now, speaking of running backs, we know that there's Ramondre Stevenson. They cut James Robinson in the preseason, or not even he didn't even make it to the preseason. He made it to OTAs.
He didn't make it.
He made it to OTAs. But Patriots beat writer Evan Lazar, who's very good, by the way, I actually follow him on Twitter for a lot of Patriots stuff, is that Pierre Strong could complement Ramondre Stevenson as the lightning to Ramondre's thunder. Now, Lazar notes that Strong is on the James White track, which is a very fruitful RB2 PPR track. We've seen that in James White's career. To playing time, despite receiving just 17 touches as a rookie. But when he did touch the ball, he had some explosive plays, which I liked quite a bit watching the Pats last year. Strong's a second-year back, 4.37 speed. He's shifty. He rushed for over 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns during his time at South Dakota. And he also added 62 receptions for 565 yards and another 3 scores in college. So, James, are you buying in on Pierre Strong? Or you already said you were kind of fading the Patriots offense, but I feel you get Pierre Strong dirt cheap.
I mean, I have him sitting on a couple of taxi slots, and rightfully so. The one, I guess it was the game against Arizona where he went for like 5 for 70, and a touchdown.
Yep.
5 attempts for 70 yards. I mean,
Yeah. He
that's
had a
something that you
long run
kind
on
of
that one.
pay
It was nice.
attention to. Obviously, those were the weeks that Ramondre Stevenson were struggling, and I don't expect any running back in this NFL setting to absolutely take every single snap, every single reception. There's going to be someone there spelling them out. And in this case, yeah, it most likely is Pierre Strong. If you have a taxi slot open, go ahead and add him. He may be on your waiver wire after a poor season last year, and the evident evidentful fact that Ramondre Stevenson is going to be taking the bulk of the carries.
And the
I don't
receptions. He had 70 catches last year.
Yeah, I don't see them really adding anybody to the backfield. It's not their style to go in and go get a veteran to come in when they really don't know their true identity yet. They're trying to work out a DeAndre Hopkins deal. They just paid Devontae Parker. We know we have Ramondre Stevenson, but they have this second-year player out of South Dakota State in Pierre Strong, who kind of showed promise last year and is on the cheap. I mean, what was he, like a 6th or 7th round pick?
Yeah, he was a late pick. Now, Jamie in the chat asked about Ty Montgomery. Is he still going to be involved? I think that Bill Belichick loves Ty Montgomery. They wanted to get him involved last year. There was a lot of steady drumbeat stuff with Montgomery as that Swift Army knife kind of guy. Like we saw him in Green Bay so many years ago, right? I think Bill likes him a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised if Montgomery maybe starts out in that role. But the thing with Ty Montgomery, dude can never stay healthy. That's his biggest problem. So you may see some Ty Montgomery early in the season, and then Pierre Strong takes over that role. I think that's what'll end up happening because Ty Montgomery did have a lot of momentum. Then he got hurt, and then he was never seen from again. But we have heard that Bill likes him, and if Bill likes you, that's a good sign for the Patriots offense.
Yeah, I would keep an eye on it throughout the preseason. It's just a precursor to training camp. If he is, in fact, the number 2, we will see him a lot, just like we saw Ramondre Stevenson early and often in preseason when Damian Harris was a starting running back.
Yep. Mixing over to another running back, the Athletics' Paul Dehner. We'll go with Dehner. It sounds cool. Reports all sides would prefer resolution sooner rather than later when it comes to Joe Mixon's contract situation. So it looks like it's finally out in the open that Mixon needs to agree to a pay cut to retain his roster spot. But we don't know how steep of a reduction the Bengals are going to seek. Is it going to be something like the Dalvin Cook situation where they can't agree and then they just cut him? I don't think that's going to happen personally. He's 26 years old. I know he has the possible domestic dispute. Well, he has domestic disputes on his record, and there's another one that I think he goes to trial this week on. Pending. It's a throw-first offense. Are we actually investing in Joe Mixon, James?
I am not. I am trying to get rid of any shares that I have left over. Everybody was ranting and raving last season about, oh, well, I picked up Joe Mixon and he was going to be a star. Well, he really didn't top out as well as you wanted him to, like he did the year prior. And now you're like, damn, I should have gotten rid of Mixon. And now you're saying, damn, I really need to get rid of Mixon because guess what? If he does get cut, he's in a long line of vets, excuse me, that will trump him as far as talent, given the Dalvin Cook scenario. We also have ears about a Josh Jacobs holdout, which, that's like, there's some really good running back. Yeah, Saquon Barkley. I hate to say
J.K.
it, but
Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins. Yeah, you know what? The holdout news is totally different. I shouldn't even have brought that into play here because it's a totally different conversation. But some of these, like the Zekes, the Fournettes, Mixon, he's in that age group where it's going to be really hard for him to get another full contract worked out. He's 26 years old, didn't perform up to par last year. We saw Samaje Perine come in, which got him another gig. And now we're looking at Joe Mixon with a possible another domestic dispute. I'm off this carousel. I'm not riding it anymore. Like you said, it's a pass first offense. I don't think the running back is as valuable as it once was, especially with someone like Chase Brown, but to back him up. And who's the other back there?
Travion Williams, and they have
Travion Williams. Yeah, I'm not too convinced with Travion Williams.
Williams has been there for 5 years. He
should have done something already. But no, I'm really not. I'm out on Mixon.
So
not investing.
I am in on Mixon, and I'll tell you why. I'm in on Mixon because I feel that if the Bengals were going to do something, it's post June 1st. They've got Fournette, Zeke, Dalvin Cook's been on the market. We have heard nothing when it comes to Cincinnati even sniffing around a running back. So I think Mixon is going to stay there. I think he is poised to have a bit of a bounce back season. Outside of that big game that he had, the 5 touchdowns, Mixon was frustrating to own last year because in 2021, he finally had his breakout season, right? And Mixon was awesome. 2022, he regressed. I think that 2023, I think he's going to stay on the team. I think with an improved offensive line, everyone's going to think pass first. I think Mixon could actually flourish. He doesn't have much behind him. We talked about Travion Williams, Chris Evans, guys like that. Chase Brown, a 5th round pick. Okay. But for me, if I can get Mixon for, say I'm a win now and I can give up a mid 2024 second, I'd do that for Joe Mixon. I think it's worth it.
That's fair.
I don't think you're going to have to give up a first to get Joe Mixon. A lot of people are off him. So when I see value windows open up on a player that I think is clearly talented and the team's telling us that they're not really going to do anything at running back, they would have done it by now, just like the Minnesota Vikings did, just like the Cowboys did, just like the Buccaneers did with all these releases. They wouldn't have waited this long. It would have been one of those things if they didn't believe in Joe Mixon or it was a contract thing. As soon as he got those charges pressed against him, they would have dropped him like a bad habit. So for me, I don't see any smoke. So I don't think there's any fire with Joe Mixon and him being off the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm going to try to play into that and try to find a nervous owner and get him at a value because I think that he can be an RB1. He's shown it. And in that offense, I want pieces of it. And even if I own Joe Mixon, I can go out and get Travion Williams or Chase Brown cheap if I need to for a little extra security blanket for a binky. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it with Joe Mixon.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I want to tell you guys about something that I support Joe Mixon right now in Dynasty, and I also support Trophy Smack, and I'll tell you why. It's unique products that Trophy Smack has. When I saw an ad this week for a Scott Fishbowl ring, and then I saw it, and I was like, damn, that looks really freaking cool. I kind of want it. $75. It's beautiful. It's big. It's got Scott Fishbowl on the front. It says be a good person on the side. Like, it's all what Fantasy Cares and what Scott Fishbowl is all about in ring form. It's a limited edition, so you can go on and get it now. Now, when you do that, make sure to get a trophy, get a belt, grab something else, use code DHH ring, and you'll get a free championship ring about the size of the Scott Fishbowl one for absolutely free. So lots of awesome stuff going on with Trophy Smack. They're going to be hosting the LA live draft for Scott Fishbowl in their beautiful corporate headquarters. We didn't get an invite. I need to talk to Tyler. He needs to work harder on that kind of thing. So we've been their longest standing sponsor they've been our longest standing sponsor, but we were one of the first ones to rep Trophy Smack here in the podcast space. So Matt, hook us up, man. Fly us out. We'll represent. I'll wear my Scott Fishbowl ring. I'll wear my stuff. Yeah, you got me. So yeah, make sure to use code DHH ring when you go on to Trophy Smack now. All right, let us move forward. We are going to do the divisional breakdown by team of the NFC South. I didn't listen to last week's podcast, so I don't know how James and Tyler formatted it, but here's how I'm going to do it. Because whatever, Tyler, whatevs.
Actually, he did very well. But I mean, I don't want to take anything away from him.
So I want to
because it was a very fun episode.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Tampa Bay. And I want to talk about them first because I think they have a ton of question marks, obviously starting at the quarterback position, right? They've got Baker Mayfield. They've got Kyle Trask. They're a team that hasn't added a running back yet. In fact, they got rid of one in Leonard Fournette. So I think they're a team that I feel a lot of people are fading because of Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. And I feel like we have some buying opportunities for some grizzled veterans like Mike Evans. I think Chris Godwin's value is low, even though the dude missed games and still had 100 catches last year. Super talented. So James, give me your overall view of the team here, and then we'll talk maybe some buy, sells, holds.
Yeah, sure. Tampa in a really narrow lens, easily rebuilding. All right, like we said, they lost Tom Brady. Okay, very hard to replace someone like the GOAT. Fournette was released. It was only a $5 million dead cap hit. So see you later, bye, Lenny. All right. they got rid of the offensive coordinator, correct? I believe so.
Yeah,
Byron
Byron Leftwich
Leftwich,
is gone.
no more with the team.
Yep.
And now they get quarterback Baker Mayfield, and they have Kyle Trask. Doesn't seem like they're making a move on anyone else in free agency. So we're going to have a little bit of a training camp battle, I guess. And it's still disgusting. Baker Mayfield, Dynasty QB 34. Kyle Trask isn't even ranked. So that just, it makes me yuck. You know, it's very hard to pinpoint these quarterbacks and the offensive pieces around them due to the poor quarterback play that we should see.
Yeah, I think for when you look at Tampa, like I said, it all starts at the quarterback position. For me, it's what does that mean for Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, Cade Otton, who's been really impressing in OTAs. He's a guy that I've got stashed on a handful of taxi squads. I picked him up last year. For me, it's like I think Evans is probably the most impacted because the last time we saw an outside receiver of any kind of namesake with Baker Mayfield, it was Odell Beckham Jr. I'm trying to even think after that. Like Baker Mayfield and outside receivers don't seem to get along well. And it could have just been the offense they ran in Cleveland. I think Baker's got a good arm. He showed flashes last year for the Rams. I don't think he's completely washed yet. So for me, does Mike Evans get his 10th 1,000-yard season in a row? You're saying no? I think it's probably going to be – it's a 17-game season. I think it'll be close. If I'm investing in anyone in this offense, it's going to be Chris Godwin because Chris Godwin has the type of skill set. You remember Jarvis Landry when he was with Baker in Cleveland and it was still productive? Chris Godwin is a bigger, better version of Jarvis Landry that's more versatile. So I think if anyone's going to benefit from Baker Mayfield or not lose out rather from Baker Mayfield, it's going to be Chris Godwin. So I think Chris Godwin, I would go after and try to buy aggressively because let's look at it. Let's look at it this way. If you go out and get Chris Godwin, his price is decreased right now. Tampa is silent quitting. They're going to draft a quarterback in the first round next year. Whether that's they're as bad as it's Caleb Williams, it's Drake May, it's the kid from Florida State who I like. They're going to take Jordan Travis, I think. They're going to take a quarterback in the first round. So you may have to suffer for a year with Chris Godwin on your team and still get a wide receiver too, in my opinion. And then to really have him boom the year after with a better quarterback situation. But we've seen wide receivers produce with horrible quarterback positions. How often did DeAndre Hopkins do it, right? All the time. I think Chris Godwin has that in him. My biggest question for Tampa is the backfield. I know a lot of people love Rachaad White. He's okay.
I mean, he's going to be the primary back. We know that. He has a little bit of pass catching ability. He's pretty shifty, but it's the poor offensive line. Last year, 25th in points scored.
Yep.
They did add Chase Edmonds, who, could take a little bit of work from him, but like
they did also add Sean Tucker.
And then Sean Tucker, he should be ready for camp.
I hope so, man.
He's definitely my 2023 Kyron Williams. I mean, he has to be, right?
Yeah, at this point. I mean, we both roster quite a bit of Sean Tucker. I believe in the talent. I'm hoping the medicals clear up because that's a backfield. You drop him in there, he makes the team, he's healthy. Sean Tucker could be like the guy by midseason.
And I'll piggyback off of what you said about the wide receivers. Mike Evans, he's on an age cliff. Yes, he has 9 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, but I am deathly afraid for the simple fact that Baker has always had problems with the long ball. All right. He's good intermediate crossing routes, checking down. But when you need a player to be put on an island and it's a 50-50 ball, Mike Evans is one of the best at that. It didn't really happen. And it didn't happen last year either. He only broke 100-yard games 3 times, and one of those was a 200 plus 3 touchdown game. Yeah. So, and it was the end of the season, week 17 in the fantasy finals.
Yeah.
So, I'm not betting on that for my roster. I really am not. His value is down in the dumps, and I don't see his value.
It's not going to go
resurrecting. Yeah, exactly. So I'm out on him. But Chris Godwin, you made a good point. He's sitting at Dynasty wide receiver 22 right now. Yeah, he had a couple injury riddled years, but he should still be the main benefactor of receptions and targets. He had 104 receptions last year. I see that continuing. He's only 27, so you wait for his 28 year.
He was coming off an ACL last year. He should be
Yeah, and
fully
he still
recovered.
has two. He still has 2 years after this for in his 3-year extension with the team. So I think it's kind of like a buy low scenario on Godwin with the bad news surrounding on the team, because as you mentioned, they are poised to draft a quarterback in 2024.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think there's any really super like ancillary pieces I'm interested. I think Cade Otton is a sneaky ad in your tight end premium leagues because let's be honest, people aren't even thinking about him right now. But that tight end depth chart is pretty thin. I mean, there's
Payne
no
Durham from
Payne
Purdue.
Durham was drafted. I do like Payne Durham, but there's no Cameron Braid anymore. Obviously, Gronk is retired. So and Cade Otton flashed last year. So I like going out and trying to acquire Cade Otton if you can, as a sneaky play. Maybe get him as a throw in a deal that you're trying to work out here in the offseason. I've been getting the itch to make some deals lately, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, for me, the Bucks are a little messy. I think they're the messiest team in this division. It's going to be super interesting to see what happens with them. Yeah, I mean, that's all I really got to say. There's not a ton to go into on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's move it on to a much more fascinating team. The Carolina Panthers. They traded up to get the number 1 pick in the draft with the Chicago Bears, and they took Bryce Young, who they have raved about. Frank Reich, the new head coach, has raved about Bryce Young. He said his intelligence is off the charts, his ability to, read the defenses, make plays. You've heard the name Drew Brees get comped a few times. Obviously, they're similar in stature, so I get that. Coming off a superb career at Alabama, Bryce Young is I wouldn't say he's a flawless prospect, but he is, outside of height, if he was 6 foot or 6'1", everyone would be like, he's the best thing since sliced bread. But because he's only 5'9" and he looks small, people have their doubts, which I think is silly. Like, yeah, I know he played college ball. I know the NFL is a little bigger, a little faster, but I think he's going to be just fine because of his skill set. But this team is a team that's pretty much restructured a lot of their offense. They bring in Miles Sanders as the highest paid free agent running back. Deonta Foreman moves on to Chicago. They still have Chuba Hubbard. They've got Blackshear there as their third running back. So there's not a lot of depth here on the running back chart. But really, when it comes to pass catchers, last year they had DJ Moore. They traded him away in the deal to get Bryce Young with the Chicago Bears. So they bring in DJ Chark, who's shown some flashes. They bring in Adam Thielen for that veteran presence. They've still got Terrace Marshall, who, God damn it, I think he's good. We'll see what happens. And then they go and draft Jonathan Mingo was his name-o as a top 40 pick for Jonathan Mingo. So, James, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this Panthers offense. I think it could be sneaky good in Bryce Young's first year.
I'm not that optimistic that it's going to be sneaky good. I actually think that he may lose a little bit of value, and there might be a buying option mid-season, just for the simple fact of his receiving room. I think it really puts a damper on what his potential is, but it's also a part of the restructuring of the franchise that makes it work. You have the Adam Thielen, Old Man Rivers type locker room vet there that can coach along the receivers. Terrace Marshall, we haven't seen you do anything in 2 years. You had under 500 receiving yards and a touchdown last season. He
flashed a little bit last year.
I don't think he's going to do it. DJ Chark, on the other hand, is very, very underrated in the NFL and in fantasy. Definitely can deal with a new QB. We saw him deal with Jared Goff quite frequently. Definitely the field stretcher of this group, and only signed a 1-year prove-it deal. So it's a $5 million deal that either way, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, see you later, bye. But Jonathan Mingo, dynasty wide receiver 55 currently, out of Ole Miss, drafted 39th overall this year, just goes out and says something. He's saying, hey, even in a market share where the top wide receivers went in the first round, Mingo came in early second round and seems to be making a presence in minicamp, rookie camp, and I think it's going to transition into training camp. I think he's going to be a solid staple in the passing game with crossing routes, with his size and speed. And I pretty much scooped him up everywhere I could in drafts and will continue to add him late in startups. And then, there's that old Laviska Chenault, rest in peace, kind of there.
Why you gotta hurt
It's
me like that?
disgusting. It's disgusting. It really is. That's why I think there's going to be a dip in Bryce Young's value. And yes, it will carry over. But Miles Sanders is poised to have a big year. Is he going to top his 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns, his career high year from Philly last year? No, I don't think so. I think the offense stalls a little bit around the goal line. And when they get inside the 20, it's going to be question marks. And Chuba Hubbard, sorry, bud, you're off my rosters. I'm not really into it. But if you can, I'm selling Miles Sanders for a 2024 first. I'm okay with that value. If you can get that value, either way, you have 2 to 3 years with him with a new quarterback. So he might be pretty relevant. So I think the value is fair there. Jonathan Mingo, go out and get him as much as you can on your dynasty rosters. I think he's going to be worth the stash.
Yeah, I think Mingo is super interesting because whenever you listen to analysts and, all that kind of stuff, people either love Mingo, they think he could be like Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is lofty, right?
Yeah.
Or they think he's just a guy that can't separate that the Panthers reached on. So there's no like happy medium with Jonathan Mingo, which is crazy to me. So for me, I think I roster Mingo in one league. I was able to get him, but I wasn't trying to seek him. There was other receivers I liked better in that range. But I mean, size, speed, comparison. He wasn't super productive in college. There's a lot of this cases for and against Mingo. So it's going to be, he's one of those prospects that's super interesting to me. That is just very polarizing because I don't have a good read on what he can be.
I mean, he runs a 4.46. So if he can learn how to separate a little bit,
good.
That's pretty close to what Keenan Allen.
He was a 4.55. I
big
think
frame, frame, fast guy inside like that could very well help out Bryce Young.
Yeah, and they've been working a lot together in the offseason, which is always a good sign. The rookie QB, the rookie wide receiver, that whole corollary, which is always good. One position we didn't talk about because they just haven't used the tight end position since Greg Olsen was there. Ian Thomas is just a blocker. He's got baseball mitt-sized hands, which is great, but it hasn't related to anything for fantasy. I actually liked him coming out as a cheap tight end option. It didn't work out. And then they drafted Tommy Tremble, who I like a lot as a move tight end. But I just, Frank Reich's offense, he's coming from the Colts, who had a bunch of tight ends, and they use them fairly regularly.
Frequently.
I would be interested if, they've got the pass catchers at the receiver position. They've got a bunch of them. No one great, but a bunch of good, right? Like we'd agree that it's a good receiving core. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's probably a top 18 in the league, maybe 18, 19, I would think. Because I still think Adam Thielen, he's obviously older, but he can be a security blanket for a rookie quarterback. He's going to run clean routes. Bryce Young, the way that he passes and his accuracy, those two things match up really well. I think Tommy Tremble, and he might even be available in your dynasty leagues. Go and pick him up. He's an athletic freak. I think he reminds me of like a Chiga Okonkwo, but not quite as athletic, but he just hasn't been given the opportunity. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tommy Tremble have some fantasy relevant weeks this year. And you can get him for the price of nothing right now. He's one of my guys that I like super duper late in deep drafts or deep dynasty startups is Tommy Tremble. So, and as far as Miles Sanders,
I'm sorry to interject, but just to stay on while we're on the tight ends, would you rather have the hernia surgery Hayden Hurst or Tommy Tremble?
I'd rather have Tommy Tremble because I don't think Hayden Hurst. I even forgot he signed there, to be honest.
First round draft pick Hayden Hurst.
God. When he was 25 years old, he was the oldest rookie ever. Hayden Hurst, he's had a solid career. He didn't really do a lot for the Bengals last year. I don't know. Give me Tommy Tremble. That's what I'm saying. Hayden Hurst will be there for 1 year. Tremble's still young. Tight ends take a while. So I still have faith in Tommy Tremble. And as far as Miles Sanders goes, I think he can beat out 1,200 rushing yards because I think that Carolina offensive line is good. The biggest question with Miles Sanders is going to be, what does he do in the passing game? Now, there's been a steady drumbeat that they want to get him involved in the passing game. It's something that they didn't do in Philadelphia. 2 years ago, I think Miles Sanders caught 50 balls, which was great. And then they didn't really target him much. He had some problems with his hands. And maybe that's just the thing where like he was having problems catching the football because he wasn't getting enough opportunities. So I think Miles Sanders has the ability. He had the ability coming out of Penn State. Everyone loved him in that role. Then he has a 50-catch season in the NFL. And then the offense changed because they had Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts doesn't throw to the running backs. He's just going to take off and run. So with a guy like Bryce Young, who can also take off and run, I just don't think he does it as naturally as Jalen Hurts does. I'm hoping that Sanders can have a 1,200 plus rushing yards and get back to that. Even 35 to 40 receptions would be just kind of a cherry on top for Miles Sanders. The touchdowns, can he get to double digits in a 17-game season? Sure, he could. He still has explosiveness. He can still pop a 50-yard run or a 50-yard catch and run like we saw him do last year and in years before. So he still has that explosiveness. And as far as Chuba Hubbard goes, he's boring. He might average 3.5 yards a carry. But if Miles Sanders goes down, and we know he's not the most healthiest guy, Chuba Hubbard can handle 20 touches a game. Now, he might turn 20 rushes into 75 to 80 yards, but he's pretty good at the goal line. I think he's still rosterable.
Ugh, gross.
I know, but volume, like if he's your flex play and he's going to get you a touchdown and 80 yards, that's a win. Like he's shown that he might not be the greatest player, but he's capable in that role. And they don't have anything else behind him. They have Blackshear, and they just took someone from someone else's practice squad. Tyon Evans from the Rams is now on Carolina. He's a big body, cool. So for me, Chuba is worth rostering in like a 25-man league. I think you can still make space for him and do it that way. So for the Panthers, I think Bryce Young actually has a good rookie season. I believe in the talent of Bryce Young, and I think he has enough around him. He may not have any studs, but he's got a bunch of good players, and we'll see what Mingo becomes. I think that's really the wild card in the passing offense is what is Mingo, and can they get something from Terrace Marshall? Because I think he has the potential to be that alpha type of receiver. He's built like Demaryius Thomas. He can make explosive plays. I just don't know that he's been used that way. He had a good college career at LSU. He's got size. He's got speed. I don't know. Maybe I'm on maybe he's on the Devontae Adams track of like prospects. Because for me, he's built like him. I don't think he's going to have the quarterback. Like maybe Bryce Young can be his Aaron Rodgers, and it's year 3 or 4 when Terrace Marshall finally breaks out. I don't know. Maybe this is a hopes and dreams moment, but I've always liked Terrace Marshall. I still have him rostered in a bunch of dynasty leagues because I hold out hope that he can become a thing because I think he's talented. So we shall see. Any other words on the Panthers before we claw our way off to the next team?
No, let's get out of here.
All right. And before we claw our way off, the best way to shave a Panther I've heard? It's with the Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped. If you can pin down a Panther and shave it with the Lawnmower 4.0, I will personally buy you the kit. And I'll use code DHH and get 20% off when I do it. It is the best grooming product for dudes out there. Skin safe technology. You're not going to nick up your bits. Actually, when I get a little scruffy, I'll shave like the scruff out. So it's just easier to shave. So I'll use that. It works great for that. Hair, nose and ear trimmer. I'm older, so I get those kind of things for you young bucks out there. It may collect dust for like 10 years, but then eventually it'll be like, oh, I remember I was listening to DHH, and now I got these nose hairs and these ear hairs. I got to take care of this. So you don't throw it away. Don't give it to someone. Keep it. It works really well too. And then on top of that, you're going to be groomed. You've got all the fresheners, the cleansers. You are going to smell great. You are going to feel great. It's just an awesome package, just like yours will be when you get manscaped.com and use code DHH for 20% off today. Just shaving a Panther. That's funny. All right. Let us move on to our next team. That's the New Orleans Saints, who made a lot of moves this offseason. And there's a lot of question marks on this team. They went and found their quarterback, and it's Derek Carr, Mr. Eyeliner himself. Mr. Eyeliner himself, who's getting all attitude in his team pictures now. Like, he went from being like, hi, I'm Derek Carr with the eyeliner, to now like, I'm Derek Carr and I'm mad. So cool.
Derek Carr eyeliner, eyeshadow.
Oh, maybe. They go out and they draft Kendre Miller. We don't know what's going on with Alvin Kamara and his supposed suspension. Hopefully we hear from that sometime in the next 2 months before we do drafts, because that would be helpful. And then, at wide receiver, Chris Olave had a great rookie season. He could be the next big thing. I'm going to put that out there. Michael Thomas, will he play more than 2 games this year, James? We don't know.
Oh, yeah.
You think so? I think this is an interesting transition for this team because I think their defense is really good still. And their offense, I don't know. I think I'm going out and trying to buy Chris Olave. I don't roster him anywhere, but in listening to some people that really know their stuff, there's people that think Olave has a better season than Garrett Wilson and a better career than Garrett Wilson. Now, I think that might be a little bit lofty, but the metrics bear out. Chris Olave had a great rookie season. Now, I know he led the league in air yards for a while because they were literally just bombing it downfield to him all the time. But he showed that he can run routes. His reception perception that Matt Harmon does favored very, very well for Chris Olave. That's what he was known for coming out of Ohio State. I think he can see more volume. I think Michael Thomas is dust at this point. He'll be slanty boy over the middle, and that's cool. But I think Olave is the bee's knees in this offense. What do you think, James?
Olave is definitely the main benefactor in this offense. Only 23 years old, definitely has room to grow in the NFL. Fast 40 time, 4.39. And I'm all about him being my wide receiver 2. Not confident as he can hold a wide receiver 1 value.
What's his
roster?
DLF startup ADP? He's what, wide receiver?
Startup ADP is wide receiver 10.
Okay, I thought he was a wide receiver 1.
It's a little high for me as far as that goes. But if you have him as a wide receiver 2, it's absolutely perfect. You should be crossing your leagues with that. But I do think he will have somewhat of a lower target share than he had last year. 120 targets and 70-something receptions, 72 receptions, something like along those lines.
Yeah.
Only 4 touchdowns out of that. Yes. Is the quarterback play an upgrade? Yeah. It was Andy Dalton. Remember that? James Winston still hasn't been able to win. In. Yeah, maybe some Taysom Hill, but yes. Is Derek Carr an upgrade? Sure. But Olave is definitely the breadwinner in this offense. Michael Thomas, 30 years old, definitely has. We've been waiting with bated breath for the return of Michael Thomas, and
look good when he was healthy last year for 3 games.
Last year, I was just about to get there. Last year, first 2 games, 3 touchdowns and at least 55 receiving yards in each game.
And he was never to be seen again.
Yeah, but I mean, if you couldn't or just failed to sell the last few years, I am offloading any remaining shares if I am not competing. Get a second, get a third.
I got a first for him at the beginning of last season before the season.
That's amazing.
And
I won't get that
ran
this year.
I did, except so goddamn fast. I was like, except
but my real doubt is that Derek Carr can really sustain 2 top-end wide receivers. So Chris Olave obviously takes the cake, and then Michael Thomas is left for dead in that respect, especially with a receiver in the tight end group with Juwan Johnson. And I really want to talk about him, Doug, because his dynasty value is super low right now.
He's cheap.
All you hear about is the addition of Foster Moreau. I understand he kicked cancer's ass, etc. He's 26 years old. They give him a 3-year, $12 million contract.
Carr. He didn't even really do anything with him to begin with.
He didn't do anything with Derek Carr anyway. Yeah. And apparently he's the favorite. Juwan Johnson is the favorite for Derek Carr. He had such a good rhythm early on with Darren Waller in the Raiders offense. I think it transfers.
Juwan Johnson is like Darren Waller light.
Yeah, 100% size relevance all over the place.
Yep.
And 42 receptions, 500 yards, 7 touchdowns in 2022. I think he can continue to grow off of that. And I see a dynasty tight end by only number 31 in startups. His value should go up. Too many rookies going ahead of him in startups. I'm all about Juwan Johnson.
The most interesting story I've heard this offseason about Juwan Johnson is how the Saints wanted him to study Julian Edelman's tape. That's super interesting. And the thing that was great about Edelman wasn't that he was fast, right? He was shifty and his footwork. And obviously he had great hands. Sorry, yep. Tyler. So it's interesting that a big guy like that, go study Julian Edelman. Okay. They're probably going to use him a little bit in this. I know Michael Thomas is the stereotypical slot receiver when he says he's not a slot guy, but whatever. But if you got 2 guys running over the middle of the field, I think Juwan Johnson, I know people I like Foster Moreau. I've always thought he reminded me of Gronk a little bit with his game. He's just never, He's never done it. I don't think he's going to do it in his second stop with Derek Carr when he had opportunities when Darren Waller was injured. So for me, it's a cool signing. I like him as a player. I think that he can block really well. He can be a ancillary tight end, and he's
maybe
a
it's
good
a comfort
NFL player.
piece for Derek Carr.
Sure. But Juwan Johnson, like you said, is the guy that I want to go out and target. And when we talk about this backfield with the pending Alvin Kamara suspension, I don't think enough people are talking about Jamal Williams. I know he led the NFL in rushing or he was second in rushing touchdowns last year, or whatever it was. He had 18. Yeah. If Alvin Kamara is suspended, I don't think the Saints are going to be like, okay, Kendre Miller, here's a bunch of touches. Jamal Williams can carry the ball 20 to 25 times. We know how good he is around the goal line, and this offense should be good enough to get into scoring opportunities fairly often, I think. So for me, I think Jamal Williams, if I'm a win now team, I feel that you can pick up Jamal Williams dirt cheap because he's older. They're going to see Kamara. They're going to see Kendre Miller. I feel like he's kind of been disrespected a little bit and forgotten about coming off his career year last year for Detroit. Kamara, if he's suspended for 6 games, even if he's not suspended, I think that Jamal Williams, they signed him for decent money. They signed him early in free agency. A running back that got an early free agent deal is a sign that they're going to use him, because look at all these running backs that still haven't signed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, Kendre Miller, only a 3rd-round pick in this year's draft, and I know we're not too fond of him on this podcast.
I don't mind him. That was a running joke, yeah.
Yeah.
That was Tyler's thing, and I just ran with it.
But I think if Kamara does miss time, I think his stock does rise. I mean, Jamal Williams isn't going to do everything at his age and at this stage of his game. They are going to have to rely on Kendre Miller to some extent. And I think where he gets it is in the reception department. We saw Kamara 57 receptions last year, hyper targeted, of course, but lower in respect from what he had done in the past. He still had over 1,300 all-purpose yards last year. I'm not saying that Kendre Miller is going to wind up with 1,300 all-purpose yards. Not in the cards, especially in his rookie year. But I do think that he can do something in an offensive setting where he is going to be a pass catcher. He is a grinder. He's not afraid to take on a linebacker with his size, 6 foot, can stand up and just take a beating. I think it's okay. But like I said, with Michael Thomas coming back, they have Juwan Johnson there. They have Chris Olave. I expect this to be a pass-first offense. Yeah, I really do. I don't expect them to lean on the run as much, especially in between the 20s. I think they're going to pass first and run later. And Jamal Williams might be the best cheap buy here in the backfield if he's available, because he probably will get most of the goal line work.
Now, who's the receiver I'm forgetting about that popped last year in his rookie year?
Rashid Shaheed?
Shaheed. I don't know why. I'm usually really good at remembering names. That one escaped me. Rashid Shaheed, I think, is interesting. With Derek Carr at quarterback, maybe not as much, because, again, you have Olave, you have Thomas, you have Johnson, you have the running backs. I like Shaheed. I thought he popped really nicely on tape for that deep playability. For me, great best ball pick or Scott Fishbowl pick.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Last round.
If you're picking late. So that's where I would put him. Obviously you want to kind of monitor him and see if he increases this year. But if you got him, I would hold him. If you're playing best ball on Underdog, again, code DHH for match up to $100. Rashid Shaheed is a great best ball target, or Scott Fishbowl.
But Doug, what about Traquan Smith and Brian Edwards, A.T. Perry?
Was Traquan Smith still there?
Right? No.
I was going to say, Robert Meacham. How far are we going back? Joe Horn? Where's he at?
Marcus Colston.
Remember when he had tight end eligibility? That was the best.
Yeah.
Pepperidge Farm remembers. We're just dating ourselves now because we're so damn old. So I think New Orleans has a lot of interesting pieces. But I'm going after Johnson. I'm going after Olave. Even at that price, I think Olave. I think by this time next year, we could be talking about Olave as a top 6 dynasty receiver, possibly.
For sure. He's on the way up. Yeah.
So maybe you have a manager who doesn't like him as much and you can get him. I would do that. Jamie in the chat asked, Kendre Miller or Rashawn Johnson in Dynasty, James?
Miller.
I would go Miller too, just because the Chicago's not a great team.
The run for the number one runner on the team is the quarterback.
So and then you have Khalil Herbert.
And you have Khalil Herbert. You have Deontay Foreman. We may not see Roshan Johnson until later in the season.
Mhm.
If Alvin Kamara is suspended for any length of amount of time, we will get to see Kendre Miller up front. His value moves up faster than Roshan, and then I'm selling as soon
No
as
one talks
possible.
about the possibility of Kamara getting dealt too. Like I could see
Dealt
that
to
happening.
where? With a pending suspension? I don't
No.
see it.
After the suspension,
He's
because remember they
28.
pushed the trade deadline back. So
I
I
don't
mean,
even know. He might be on the last year of his contract. I could look into that.
he
for
might
us.
be. I mean, remember there's injuries to running backs all the time. There's a team that's win now. Maybe it's the Ravens. J.K. Dobbins goes down. They go, what do we do? They go and trade for Alvin Kamara. Who knows? That's all I'm saying. I think
It's
Kendre Miller gets on the field first before Roshan Johnson.
He still has 2 more years left
Yeah,
after this season in
yeah.
a 6-year deal. But there is a potential out with a $16.7 million dead cap hit.
And let's be honest, New Orleans is the one team that's like the cap number is the most fungible, weirdest thing
Oh,
ever.
yeah. They work the cap out of nowhere.
Taysom
Oh,
Hill's
it's
making like
$16 million?
$35 million
Yeah.
somehow.
We'll turn that into 1,600, you know?
I don't know how they do it, but whatever. All right, let's get on to our final team before we get on out of here. We want to talk about Tyler's Falcons. I think one of the most exciting teams for dynasty owners.
The Falcons?
Because for the last 3 years, they've used top 10 draft capital on offensive weapons. It started with Kyle Pitts, and then he had a rookie year of over 1,000 yards, the second tight end ever to do it, and then disappointed last year. So some people are off of Pitts. Not really that far off, though, let's be honest. And then they follow up that with taking Drake London as the number 1 receiver off the board. And then this year, they triple down and take Bijan Robinson as the first running back off the board. I think this is a move. Now, I know you're going to talk about Desmond Ridder.
We don't have to.
Here's the thing. If the Falcons aren't good this year and they have a top 10 pick, I think they push all in and get a quarterback. And what better situation for a rookie quarterback to drop in than to go to Kyle Pitts, Bijan, and have Drake London on the team? I think they're building the team around it without and maybe Desmond Ridder's the guy. I'm not discounting that. I like Ridder, but I think maybe their big brain is if Desmond Ridder hits, awesome, we're good. If he doesn't, it's going to be drop this rookie quarterback in a team that has a great offensive line. They're going to have weapons at 3 different positions, and they're building something on defense on the other side of the ball. So I think that they're super interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I actually went out and acquired Drake London a few weeks ago. I gave up Alexander Madison, an ancillary player, I don't even remember who it was, and like $250 of bankroll. It ended up being like the equivalent of like $400 or so for Drake London, because I think that Drake London, out of any of these year 2 receivers, I think Drake London can take the next step and get into being a top 15 wide receiver in year 2, maybe even better, because I think there's touchdown regression there. I like what I've seen of all the metrics. His route running is really good. He's got size. He's got speed. He's got hands. He's got 2 of them, actually, believe it or not. But for me, Drake London is my buy. I'm not buying Bijan. I'm not buying Pitts because their price is still way mega high.
All right. We started with Drake London. Let's get into Drake London. Currently the dynasty wide receiver 13. Doug, I'm right there with you. I think he can still take another step. Yep. We saw him deal with abysmal quarterback play with Marcus Mariota last year.
They threw the ball like 25 times a game under Mariota.
Exactly. And I think his dynasty rank may be a smidge high right now. But I will take the risk in a startup if it's around wide receiver 13.
I think he's
if
a top
I have
10
a stud
wide receiver
next
next year.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. He's only 21 years old. He looks to be the main receiving threat, even with Pitts on the field. He's a big-bodied guy, 6'4", 213, large target, great in crossing routes.
He's locked in for a 25% target share or more, and that's huge.
I think so.
He
finished as wide receiver 31 last year in 2022 with Mariota as quarterback.
I think he had a 30% target share last year, and the rest of that wide receiver depth chart, James, is cheeks.
Oh God,
Mac Hollins?
Mac Hollins, see you later, bye. Scotty Miller, no thank you.
Nope.
I don't think there is even anybody else behind them. So God help them if they get hurt.
Zacchaeus, I think, is still there, right?
Oh, Olamide Zacchaeus. I don't even know if he's making the team.
Yeah. Who knows?
But not anybody that I really want to pay attention to anyway. I mean, obviously the main guys, and I want to touch on Desmond Ritter because it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
We will see him take the start this year. And everybody's saying, "Oh, he's not that good." Blah, 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 blah. He only started 4 games last year, and yes, only 2 touchdowns in Week 18, but there were no interceptions in that 4-game span. And that's what I want to play off of. And that's what I want to see more of moving forward into the 2023 season. Can he transition? Can he be able to read an offense, play into the Arthur Smith game script of run first, play action, crossing routes, safe football, which we saw Ryan Tannehill go from what, a 60% target share? I'm sorry, reception share, completion percentage rather, in Atlanta, and then move that into, I'm sorry, not in Miami, and then move into a 74% completion percentage when he was playing with the Titans. All right. He needs to be able to read the defense, be smart with the football, create the play action plays that are needed. He has great weapons with Pitts, Bijan Robinson, who I'm sure we'll talk about next, and then Drake London, obviously. So I'm okay with Desmond Ritter and his value right now, because his value, he's going for a mid to late second round pick for 2024 pick in Superflex leagues.
And if that
on
hits,
Dynasty
massive.
Trade Cloud. Yeah. And if he hits, this is the year it's going to work, because everybody's riding high on Bijan Robinson, and us included. I mean, I pinpoint this as a run first offense. You went out and bought a Bijan Robinson with the 109 in the 2023 draft. He has both solid speed and pass catching ability. What does that do? It helps Desmond Ritter. All right. He's going to be overfed. So the potential for Desmond Ritter to play into the play action works perfect with Bijan Robinson. I'm selling Bijan Robinson. Before he gets on the field, I'm selling. If I have
100%.
one share and it's in our fun 6-man league, so I'm not
Yeah.
going to trade. Maybe I'll trade him to the bot in that league. But if I have him, yes, it's hard to let go once you acquired him, but get two first plus, because
I had
the
him on my
guy's the
roster.
dynasty running back number 1 right now. And what do we say when they hit 1, Doug?
Sell him. I had him on my roster for a day. I had the 102 in a league that I co-managed with my friend Damon. We're a rebuild. We're in a super flex league. We have Joe Burrow. We don't really have a great second quarterback. And we got an offer. We said, hey, 101 went Anthony Richardson. We took Bijan at 102. I don't like to build my dynasty rosters around a running back. We have some decent running backs on the squad, but I was like, you know what? Someone send me an offer. We ended up we ended up getting Javonte Williams, Christian Kirk, and the 106, which ended up being JSN for Bijan Robinson. I was completely okay with that, because I think Javonte bounces back. Maybe not this year, towards the end of the season. I like Christian Kirk. He was a wide receiver 1 last year. I don't think he's going to fall off the cliff with Calvin Ridley there. And JSN, I mean, he's the 103 in non-superflex leagues. So for me, like, okay, I'll take JSN. We needed wide receiver help in that league. So for me, it's like I was able to get multiple pieces for Bijan, because again, like you said, his value is never going to be higher. Now, if you want the dynasty big brain move, what you need to do, because his value just went way down, is go get Tyler Algier. 1,000 yards in his rookie season. Bijan isn't going to get 350 touches. I don't think it's going to happen. Tyler Algier is a good player. I don't think he's extraordinary, but he's solid, right? Now, imagine in a world where Bijan Robinson goes down with an injury. You've already got Tyler Algier that showed that he can be capable of carrying the load there and be successful on a dog shit offense that was the Falcons last year. That offense should only get better. So for me, go and get Algier. What would you pay for Tyler Algier?
A 4th.
Okay, I pay a 3rd for Tyler Algier. But that's the kind of dynasty big brain. They bring in Bijan. Tyler Allgeier's value goes way low. We know how running backs work. How many Breece Hall got injured in his rookie year and missed the season.
So wait,
ACL.
if I have Bijan, I'm definitely trying to pick up Tyler Algier on the cheap for a handcuff reason.
Even if
I
don't,
don't,
go get
and
Algier
you could
anyway
still
on
get
your
Tyler
roster.
Algier as a throw-in, and for some reason Bijan Robinson goes down and his value skyrockets off of that, and you can turn that buy of a low-end third-round pick, I'll say it because a fourth was pretty cheap. And then flip him for a mid-second rounder
in a
next
win
year.
now team that, like, say something happens to Bijan, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks towards the end of the season. Algier's getting 20 carries. You can flip him and get a mid-second.
I can see a world where I agree.
Or an early second. Yeah. So I think that's the move. I think Algier's a talented player. We don't see many rookie running backs run for 1,000 yards these days, especially on teams like the Falcons that weren't very good. So for me, I'm going out and trying to get Algier. Kyle Pitts, we talked about him a little bit. I think he's fine. I think, if anything, his values come down a tad, but it's still a little pricey for me.
Yeah, it's too rich. I'm sorry. He's dynasty number 2 behind Mark Andrews on DLF. Finally, they both have usurped Travis Kelce somehow. But he's coming off a grade 2 MCL sprain from last year in week 11. He missed the rest of the season, so we don't know what would have happened down the road. Should be ready for training camp. He is more of a receiver than a tight end. We know that. But I'll sell and not look back if it's a team where I'm already stacked at tight end. I don't see how it works. I think Bijan takes away from some of his value, but it also could help open up the offense a little bit for Kyle Pitts. So he's worth 2 firsts right now on Dynasty Trade Calculator. If I can get 2 firsts in the tight end premium league for Kyle Pitts, I'm doing it and not looking back.
Yeah, that's interesting. If you can get 2 firsts in the 2024 class, maybe you pivot and be like, I'll use one of those firsts for Brock Bowers. Like, sure. We shall see. So everyone
Marvin
has a
Harrison,
price, as they
perhaps.
say in New Jersey, right? Everybody's got a price.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, for me, I only have Pitts in the league that I have Tyler with, and we traded to get him, which he didn't tell me about, but whatever.
I remember that.
Yeah, we all do. That's the only roster.
We called DHHR on that one.
I did, and they did not return my call because I think that Tyler is like the DHHR bot, and he's
he takes in the issue forms.
That bastard. Anything else on the Falcons, as Tyler calls them?
No, I think we covered them pretty well. I don't really see too much else. Cordarrelle Patterson could be a sneaky little ad.
See, they're going to use him at receiver more this year, which makes sense because their depth chart sucks.
Yeah, Matt Collins, Scotty Miller. There's nobody in there for a slot role. Cordarrelle Patterson seems to fit that pretty well. As long as he doesn't have to carry the ball 25 times in a game, which he won't with Algier there. Obviously, Robinson there.
You'll use him for some trick plays, kickoff returns.
Yeah, I think
maybe use him in the slot a little bit.
I think you could see him filling in more as a slot role type receiver, kind of active, but not too active. I don't know how fantasy relevant it's going to be, but if you have him on,
he's a late round pick.
He's a late round stash in anything.
He was a classic, like when he had his breakout year 2 years ago. Like if you didn't sell, you should have seen that one coming. Yeah, any late year.
He's
breakouts.
Like last week's meatloaf.
Yeah, you look at it, it might smell good, but you're like, do I really want to heat this up?
No, because when you heat it up, it smells really bad.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like me in the summer in the sun. Ooh, heat me
Gross.
up. Ooh, not good.
How's that cast coming along? Stinky and itchy yet?
Luckily, the cast.
You got the powder action going?
No, the cast has not been itchy whatsoever. And when it comes to stink, this is my 3rd cast. So this one
smells like an old dog's foot.
This one's only like 10 days old, so it's not terrible. It gets cut off on the 11th, not my arm, the cast. So we've got one more podcast.
Oh,
see what I did there? And then I'll be castless after July 11th, which is good because I'm going to visit Tyler and my friend Damon, who I co-manage a league, the 20th of July. So I'll be out there with just a brace, no cast. I can go swimming again. It's beautiful. The weather's starting to get warmer, so I can actually go into the pool instead of kind of waiting. When we were away for our anniversary, I did get in the hot tub and I sat there like this, and then it was dry and I sat there like this for a little while. So It wasn't terrible.
It reminds me of Steve Buscemi in Grown Ups when
You can't move.
he can't move.
I thought you were
Goes
gonna
off
say
the bar.
Con Air, and I was gonna get concerned. I was like, what?
No.
Oh man. So before we get out of here, I do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Dynasty Nerds. Rich and team run an awesome website. They're working on an app that'll be out. I believe Tyler is in currently beta. He's not the
He's
master
in test
of the
mode.
beta.
He's part of the test scenario.
Yeah, he's the master beta when it comes to Dynasty Nerds. Go on dynastynerds.com, sign up for the Nerd Herd, use code DHH, and you'll get 15% off of any subscription. They've got trade tools, extra episodes, prospect film room, prospect scores, Dynasty GM, all sorts of awesome tools on there. So check out dynastynerds.com. And if you're looking for a fancy new t-shirt or a hat for the summer, check out Verdian Global. Lots of cool stuff on there. Just search DHH or Dynasty Happy Hour if you want to support us. Getting some apparel is always a good way to do it. I feel like we're a rock band. Like the rock bands don't make any money off the music. It's like if they sell shirts and apparel, that's where they make the most money. So go rock some DHH gear. Or if you want to support an even better cause than us, go on RotoWare, get yourself a Scott Fishbowl 13 shirt.
Or fantasycares.org.
Or fantasycares.org, where they have a billion designs. And they're all so freaking cool. I'm actually disappointed because RotoWare has 3 designs. And I was like, really? They have way better ones over on Fantasy Cares. So I may have to pick up those shirts. James, what do you think of the shirt that you picked up from them? Comfy? How's it fit? What's the size like?
I have 4 that I got.
Nice.
I got my division.
I think they've had over 1,000 orders,
King
which is
States,
great.
And they're $25 a piece, and they all go to charity.
Yep.
It's for the kids. So I got one. I got the High Noon one, which was pretty cool. The shirt itself, very, very lightweight. It's definitely a summer shirt.
Good.
You're seeing the Coca-Cola logo here. I got the Blue Moon logo because that was cool.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one I got? Yeah, I got 3 beverages: Coca-Cola, High Noon, and Blue Moon. And then I got my divisional shirt that I'll be rocking next Sunday.
I picked up the Baskin Robbins one off of RotoWare, and I love the RotoWare shirts. I was a little leery of like switching over to a different company, but I may do it because there's so many designs that I really liked. So
the Doritos one was cool. Gatorade, like there's a bunch this year. I love the theme of Scott Fishbowl this year.
Yes, absolutely. Before we go, Jamie said, "When's Devi Happy Hour coming back?" Great question. We'll have to ask Tyler. I don't know that it is, but we will give that feedback to Tyler. So thank you, Jamie, for being active in the chat and asking
DM us
questions.
at Dynasty Happy Hour on Twitter and find out.
Yes, that is very, very true. So I want to thank all of our sponsors today. I want to thank James for accompanying me along this journey of the NFC South. It's a weird division. It's wide open, I think. Anyone could win it, even the Bucks. Probably not.
Probably not.
But a very interesting division from a fantasy perspective.
I think the Saints could take it.
Yeah, we shall see. Their defense is good. So that is going to wrap us up for this week. Next week, all 3 of us. I know, James, you'll be there. It's not going to be too partying hard at the live draft. You'll be fine.
We shall see.
Yeah, we shall see. But so the Triforce should be back next week. I'm really looking forward to hear James's stories from his Scott Fishbowl draft in Philadelphia. And then I'll share mine the following week in Boston. So it'll be a great time. And for Tyler, we miss you, buddy. Hopefully everything's going well. We'll see you next week here on the Dynasty Happy Hour.
Happy Independence Day, America.